from Wayanad to Delhi to Mumbai to Himachal to Leh. Ladies and gentlemen, it isn't about just the monsoon fury, it's about the new normals and disasters wreaking havoc as climate change faces us or stares at us right in our face. What will it take for India to wake up, or rather, as you can see on the screen, can India weather the crisis? What will it take for India to wake up? Because if you think India is serious about this, here's one fact. A 2022 study found that between 1999 and 2019, only 0.3% of questions raised by politicians were about climate change. Let that sink in. So essentially, even in the Indian Parliament that has MPs elected by billion Indians, the discourse around climate change has been largely ignored. The consequences of climate change apathy, lip service to policies is now beyond visible. And if we can have the visuals up, over 280 deaths in Kerala's Wayanad in just a series of landslides within 3 to 4 hours. The worst that Kerala has seen. Deaths in Wayanad, with much of it in ecologically sensitive areas, is not unprecedented. The scale this time is Delhi on your screens. Mumbai streets getting inundated, not the first. Infrastructure collapse in India's capital and the financial capital, not the first. Landslides, floods and deaths in Himachal, Uttarakhand, not the first. But behind all of these and more is one important fact. The extreme, the unusual is now the norm. I'm not making this up. I mean, in Hindi, it's a very nice saying together, Khali Pulao. That's not what I'm cooking. I'm not cooking this up. Let's look at some data for just the past few days, just July. Let's start with Wayanad. That has seen 280 plus deaths, almost 300. Bodies are still missing. People are still missing. July 30th, there was a 6% annual rainfall in just few hours. 141.8 mm rain in a day. Do you know how much was that? That was 493% more than normal. 493% more than normal. Mumbai, on July 8th, between a span of 6 hours, saw 300 mm of rainfall. July 7 to 9, 2 days, 3 days. Half of the entire month's rainfall was recorded. July was seen the second wettest July ever in Mumbai. Let's shift focus to Uttarakhand. July 7th and 8th saw 206% more than average rainfall. July 31st, of course, the heavy rainfall, excessive rainfall, which means more than usual, caused landslides in Kedarnath. Delhi, 112.5 mm rain in just 1 hour on July 31st. Do you know what is that? That's the highest single-day total for July in 14 years. Entire Delhi NCR was deluged, chock-a-block. But is it just the rain? No. Look at Leh, typically known for its cold climate, is now grappling with an unusual heat wave that has significantly disrupted air travel. Cold climate, winters, icy mountains, heat wave. Delhi is, of course, well too versed with it. Many parts of India our worst this summer with some unprecedented heat wave. In fact, let's talk facts again. A study by Council on Energy, Environment and Water has undertaken India's first of its kind district-level climate vulnerability assessment. It presents a climate vulnerability index, or the CVI, of states and union territories by mapping exposure, sensitivity and adaptive capacity. That's on your screen, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's just look at this. Over 80% of India's population lives in highly vulnerable districts. Southern zone is the most vulnerable. Eastern India, 59% districts are highly vulnerable. Western India, 41% districts are highly vulnerable. Northeast, vulnerable to floods. South, Central India, more vulnerable to extreme drought. But if you thought this was the only picture, I mean, let's just get that map up again. It's so stark because these are the places where we are living. If we can have that map up again. Look at that map on your screens. It's just going to come up any moment. Look at this. Much of India is literally living in vulnerable, high vulnerable index districts. South zone, far more vulnerable than the north. But nonetheless, you have clusters all over. Now, let's just look at some reports from around the world for that matter. The German Watch 2020 report says India is the 7th most vulnerable country. And the study that we just did, CEEW analysis, says 40% of districts, that 3/4 of India's districts are extreme event hotspots. And then, very importantly, a 2020 report states that 40% districts show swapping trend. That's floods to droughts and vice versa. So if you have south of India more prone to drought, technically, now you have instances of flooding, and that's the truth. Look at what's happening in Kerala. Look at what's happening in Chennai. Look at what's happening in Karnataka. I'm being joined at this point by Harjeet Singh, who's a climate activist and global engagement director for the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative. Brigadier B.K. Khanna, who's a member of the UNDRR Arise Global Board and CEO. Also, Chandrashekhar Prabhu, who's an architect and urban planner. Thank you very much, all three of you, for joining us. Let me just start with you first.
Thank you.
Harjeet Singh, how do you look at what we have just discussed? I mean, let's just look at how India is looking today. You have record deaths in Wayanad. You have Delhi that has seen some of its worst infrastructure collapse. Mumbai last month saw its infrastructure collapse. You have Parliament ceiling leaking. You know, you may have politics over it, but nonetheless, that's a talking point among the citizens. You have Leh. I mean, I explained all of this. What is India looking at? Can India weather this crisis? Firstly, is this a crisis? Because the Parliament doesn't discuss this.
So you are absolutely right, Sneha, and thank you for having me. These are not isolated events. They are symptomatic of a larger, more systemic issue that is our development model. There is no doubt that we need to be talking about climate change much more. And as a climate activist, that's what I have been advocating, not only in India, but around the world. But in these cases, I must mention that climate change only acts as a threat multiplier, which is only intensifying the effects of environmental degradation that are deeply rooted in our unsustainable development practices. That's what we should be spotlighting on how we have illegal mining going on, how we are destroying natural habitats, how we are destroying green spaces, how we are not having enough water bodies, which are so important for the ecosystems, how we have destroyed wetlands. And what we are seeing today is a result of our apathy towards environment. our development has not been in harmony with nature. So what we are seeing are only symptoms of a much deep-rooted problem, and that's what we should be talking about. So climate change and its impacts are increasing because we are not ready. So yes, there is no doubt that now the such events have intensified, but our cities can't even handle half an hour of downpour. Our drainage systems are blocked. And when climate change is happening and the global temperature has risen to 1.5 degree, which means we are going to see many more such disasters. We are not ready for it, be it heat waves, be it floods, be it droughts. And we have seen also wildfires in Uttarakhand, and now look at landslides. So let's talk about the deep-rooted problem of our development model and how we are destroying our environment all around.
BK Khanna, if I can come you in, you have been part of policy as well. Um, what must India do at this point? Because it has not done a lot. There's a lot that it has not done, if I can reframe that. But what can India do now? What must it do now? Can it do anything now?
Thank you very much for inviting me for on your channel. Let me first tell you, in fact, you quoted somebody who said that India is seventh largest, but I will put it up that India is the fifth. There are 5 major countries which are disaster prone, and India comes in 5 of them. I mean, one of them. And in Asia also, India, in fact, there are 4 such countries in Asia only and 1 outside Asia only. And our own continent itself is one of the most disaster-prone country as far as Indian continent is concerned. Okay, so taking that, like I've been in the NDMA also, I will also tell you that as far as the climate change is concerned, climate change adaptation for the country as also for our island, because so we have already in fact made it sometime. I think I don't remember the year, I think 13th or 14th or something. So how are we going to adopt it? And this was presented at the UN conference, one of the first countries to present it also. What is basically happening there that yes, we have got it done, but implementation is not taking place. Climate change, we knew it, of course, is going to take place. So, but how is going to, get it implemented on the ground, even for that matter, in the island, in our islands also, whether it is Lakshadweep, whether it is the, in fact, other islands there. So we have got those only. Now, problem which is coming there is the implementation. The second problem which I face here, is being faced here is that, as very rightly said also, is the unplanned urbanization which is taking place. Unplanned urbanization to the extent, I should take it in Bombay also. I am talking about the metro cities only. The metro cities, this thing, so the population is increasing day by day. The people who come there never go back. So we did that over period of something. So those small areas, more people are coming there. Those areas, of course, like in Bombay, in fact, the area which is delta area, water is going to go into the sea.
Okay.
That's where the, in fact, construction have come up. So, I mean, where do we go
Okay.
at? So
No, but Mr.
deforestation takes place. Who's touching?
Right, I get your point, but
Nobody's
Mr.
talking about
Chandrashekhar Prabhu, if I can get you in. No, but if you can I just get in Chandrashekhar Prabhu to what you're saying? Mr. Chandrashekhar Prabhu, you've heard the panelist speak right now. He's talking about people who are coming to the metro are not going back. Why should they?
Yeah.
They are coming here for different reasons because metro offers them things that other cities can't offer. Why should they? So, I mean, the onus can't be on people, on citizens. The onus has to be on the government, which clearly is falling apart.
Absolutely. Basically, this issue cannot be generalized just by brushing it away on the climate change. Of course, climate change is a reality and we have to be aware of the effects of climate change. But let's divide the whole issue into 3 or 4 parts. A is the eco-sensitive zone, like what happens in Kerala, what happens in Leh, what happens in Himachal. You know, either the Himalayas or the ranges around the Himalayas or the Western Ghats are eco-sensitive zones. We cannot play with the natural habitats there. So in Kerala, what happens is the original trees are removed and it gives way for cultivation of coffee, coffee plantation, rubber plantation, which looks green, looks nice, but it's not conducive to the environment and the eco-sensitive zone. And hence, when there is a pouring, it results in the kind of catastrophe. That is one type, which is natural plus a bit of man-made. Then we come to the cities. The cities and the metropolitan regions are all undergoing a process which can be effectively stated as strangulation of the cities. Look at Delhi, for instance. I mean, the indiscriminate growth of Delhi without any regard whatsoever to the carrying capacity. Every urban area by theory has to have certain carrying capacity. You have to assess how much land can carry what density of people, and on that density, how much infrastructure has to be there. Believe me, when we plan the cities, when we make stormwater drains, what you are talking about, the rain in Delhi or the rain in Bombay, is accounted for. You're talking of 300 mm of rainfall in Mumbai as being the highest, but the stormwater drains are catered to take care of 50 mm per hour. So if in one day 300 mm comes at 50
So then what's wrong? What's going
mm
wrong?
per hour,
You are saying it's
within
catered
5
to, then what's
hours
going
it
wrong?
should be cleared. What's going wrong is the destruction, the corruption, the work is not proper. It is indiscriminate urbanization. The cities have been handed over to the greed of the builders, and the nexus between the politician, the builder, the bureaucracy, and a section of the underworld is actually dominating. And all the rules and laws have been thrown to the winds. So the cities are being strangulated.
Okay.
900 acres of mill lands in Mumbai had 65 natural lakes. All those lakes have been filled. All the lakes in Bangalore have been filled. In Delhi, all the hill slopes and all the green areas have been concretized. So you are doing what you should not be doing. You are in fact strangulating the city and making it bleed to death. That is what we are doing. It is man-made. And don't, for heaven's sake,
you're making
blame
important
it
points,
on the
Chandrashekhar
nature
Prabhu.
alone.
And that's very important. That's very important. I think we've learned our lessons. Let me just ask one very quick question to Harjeet Singh before I get Dr. S. Faizai as well from Kerala, who's going to speak about Wayanad, what's happening in Kerala as well, particularly in Wayanad. But Harjeet Singh, if I can come to you, let's just take it from where Mr. Chandrashekhar Prabhu left it. He's saying, don't blame it on environment alone. So here's my question. Environment, climate crisis is right before us. Deaths are right before us. Infrastructure collapse is right before us. What should citizens do? Should they just sit and wait for the doomsday? Because that's literally what's happening.
Well, the first thing citizens have to do is to not forget this crisis that they face for a few days in a year, although now we are facing one crisis after the other, but they move on. And they have to hold their governments to account. They have to talk to their policymakers. But at the same time, I must mention that policymakers who know all these problems, and I totally agree, it's all man-made. The kind of destruction we have done, the kind of policies we have made, or even the good policies that we are flouting, cannot be allowed to happen. So citizens must put pressure, but the responsibility lies with policymakers to implement those policies. They cannot just shy away. And that's where the democratic system, which is only about voting in 5 years,
and
is not going to work. We need to implement democracy and our values every day. And we need to hold these policymakers and authorities to account. So we know the problem. It's not rocket science. Imagine we are living in a country which can send satellites all over, including to the moon, but we cannot fix our drainage. It's mind-boggling. You can't accept that this is going to be the case. So it's all deliberate. It's all kind of known crimes that we are doing against
Okay.
humanity and nature. That should be stopped.
Okay, if I can just very quickly have Dr. S. Faiza, and if we can have the visuals from Wayanad up as well. It's just heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching to see what's happening in Wayanad. It's almost the end of day 3. Rescue and relief operations are still on. The death toll is somewhere around 280. It's just so hard. Dr. Faiza, thank you very much for joining us. What did Kerala not do?
This is a great tragedy, and unfortunately, this tragedy keeps happening. But I'm not sure if there has been the warning on time. The Home Minister was saying they have warned, but then the Chief Minister here has clarified that the warning came right after the tragedy had occurred, the 2 episodes of landslides. But actually, our agencies, both at the national level and the state level, have to be more responsible and more alert to these kind of issues that are being developed. And we went through this in 2018, and this is happening. Another deluge is happening in such a quick succession, and this could happen again. Let's hope it would end. But if you look at the predictions made by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the recurrence of floods, earlier it used to be once in 100 years, but now it will be between 5-6 years. So we had it in 2018, and now this is being played out. The focus yet has not been made on the actual causative factor, which is the global warming. We are suffering basically because of the carbon dioxide emissions that has been happening for the past over 100 years, mainly by the industrialized countries, and the people of Wayanad who had no role in creating this global warming phenomena, they are bearing the brunt.
You know, but let's face it, yes, there have been so many warnings for Kerala. There have been so many reports that say that Kerala is literally at the center of what seems to be a cusp of climate change. There's been warnings for Wayanad as well. And I'm talking about reports over the last few years for that matter. But let's look at, while there's climate crisis, there's also the challenge of human nature interface, the excess activities, the quarrying that's going on. What are we really looking at?
We have to be prepared, but then assume that we were completely prepared, and there was no deforestation, and assume also there were no quarries in these areas. The 2 villains that people identify in creating this crisis, even then this would happen, because the precipitation was so huge, so massive, and it occurred in a period of 24 hours. In 24 hours, we had this downpour of 298 millimeter rains in that particular area. So this is no preparations on the land can prevent this. This will happen. This has to happen. So the solution lies in the larger world scene, where the community of nations have to seriously address this issue. And we are now at the global level, we are trying, people are discussing largely for solutions, solutions that does not actually require the cutting down of carbon dioxide emission, instead of going for other kinds of alternatives.
Right. I mean, you know, it's hard, Dr. Faizi, to even say that if we eliminate quarrying or deforestation, which is the true face of what's also happening in Kerala and many parts of India for that matter. Thank you very much, Faizi, Dr. Faizi, for trying and explaining things to us for a very, very complex issue. Thank you so much. But very quickly, let me just get in Brigadier B.K. Khanna as well at this point. Brigadier B.K. Khanna, to what Mr. Faizi left, there is human intervention, indiscriminate activity, eating up into forests, concretization, there's challenge of livelihoods and so much more, and then you have climate crisis. My question is, if the government is listening to us today, what would be the top 3 priorities that you would tell the Prime Minister of India, the Chief Minister of States? What should they do starting today?
No, there are 2 actions which are required. One is at the government level, and one is required there at the level of the public as such, also, or the community, we can call it as something. The government, of course, as I said earlier also, that yes, there is no dearth of the projects also, there are no dearth of course the guidelines which have been issued on all types of, including the climate change also. But what is basically missing is there only, in fact, give me 1 minute, there only as to what happened, triggered, in fact, in Kerala, the thing is that the community awareness was not there. Reason being there, as because there is a lot of migrant labor which come from Assam as also from West Bengal. And they are the one who are there on that cardamom plantation and the tea plantation as well as the coffee plantation. They are working on that only. So they are living in a very, in the shanties, etc., and in halfway in the slope or on the foothills, etc. So they are the one, of course, who will be most affected because they do not know what is required to be done. Some of them, of course, the early warning was given. That's what I am told from the NDRF. The warning was given. Some of them, they went the other side, nahi, ye to hota hai. It's okay, it doesn't matter. They stayed back and they faced the consequences. So communication, the general awareness to the, of course, the community is very, very important, and that is at every village level, the people must know in what type of disasters they are facing and what are actions they are required to save their lives. First, to save their life, this is very, very important. So that, of course, only requirement is only about 5-10 minutes only given us so that they can move out from there only. We have been, in fact, I myself have been conducting the mock exercises also, as also the capacity building the exercises. But yes, this has to be a continued affair at the national level, at the NDMA, as also at the state level, as also at the local level, that is at the district level also. That then only, of course, will be able to save the lives.
Harjeet Singh?
I can still say that yes,
but Harjeet Singh, does India have the political will? Harjeet Singh, does India have the political will?
Go to the global level, we do talk about political will, but particularly around reducing emissions, we have shown that will to go for large-scale renewable energy projects and interventions. But when it comes to adaptation and dealing with disasters, we are doing very poorly. And all these images that we are showing and the reality that we are facing, you cannot deny that. We are not prepared, and that's where we are failing. And we need to work at various levels that as we have been hearing, from local to subnational, state to national level, and that has not been happening. Yes, we need to talk about climate change. We need to also make sure that our development model is right. We are not destroying ecosystem. Integrate climate change risks into every development action that we are taking, and that requires political will as well as translating into real action and putting resources behind it. We also need to make sure that there's a lot of talk about early warning systems, but alongside that, we have to prepare our communities. We have to build climate resilient infrastructure. We need to prepare disaster preparedness plans and response. I know there's now a conversation happening to revise the disaster management bill.
May I just add a very important point, sir, to what you are saying? Let the early warning systems be transparent. It's so important because one thing that I have understood from covering Kerala for the last several years, more than a decade for that matter, every time a disaster strikes, it's a blame game because nobody knows what has happened behind the closed doors. We don't know what communication went what. It depends upon a person's version. Put it out. Let the citizens read it. Let people
Sneha,
who can
there are
access
two
websites,
parts.
alerts, let it be accessible.
Absolutely. There are two parts when we talk about early
Okay, we're
warning.
totally
One
out
is
of time, sir.
generating
Last
early
question, I think.
warning
I'm
and
sorry, sir, totally out of
communicating
time.
it.
Chandrashekhar Prabhu is raising his hands. You're right, Harjeet Singh. Please, Mr. Prabhu, you're raising your hands.
See,
Please go ahead. Your last comments.
especially, yes. In fact, this Kerala situation, see, conservation is a subject which is a science. It is not left to the interpretation of either bureaucrats or activists. It's a science. Soil conservation in forests in an ecologically sensitive area has to be done in a particular fashion. If you plant the kind of trees which holds the soil, however much it rains, it ensures that the soil doesn't take itself away. It is when you permit destruction of the forest and the roots which hold the soil, and in its place you bring about plantations. Even the plantations look green, but they are not in the true sense conserving the soil. And when whole forests are converted into plantations, which is what is happening in a massive way in Kerala, whether it is tapioca, whether it is rubber, whether it is tea, whether it is coffee. So in place of the conventional trees which held the eco-sensitive areas together, which did not permit the soil to be denuded, however much the rain would be, the trees have gone and replaced by plantation, and that is what is the real reason. Let's not shove the real reason under the carpet. And this doesn't come, I mean, there are international examples in Africa, in South America. Wherever there are eco-sensitive zones, they have to be treated in a particular fashion. We have had the Committee on Western Ghats, Chitle Committee has been there. Before that, the Gadgil Committee has been there. They have all suggested that this is a disaster waiting to happen. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they have given it in writing.
And unfortunately, the disaster has happened, sir. I can't agree with you more, but unfortunately, we are totally out of time.
We did not act on it.
You're absolutely right. You're pointing towards the right reports as well, something that we've gone
It's that
in
you
length
have not acted on the warnings. That is the real problem. And that's why these disasters keep on happening. It's the greed which overtakes the human beings.
Something that I'm reminded of, there was a time when we used to have essays in our school. Where does greed end and where does development start? Unfortunately, the time of writing those essays are over because we are right in the brink of it all. I just want to thank our panelists at this point, Harjeet Singh, Brigadier B.K. Khanna, as well as Chandrashekhar Prabhu. Thank you very much for joining us, for bringing in some very, very important perspectives. Just a very humble attempt to, at a time of a crisis, to bring the discourse to what really matters. Thank you very much.